Hey, what's up everybody? Isaac here coming to you with another New World video. So, along with Season 2, we got this nice little place called the Hatchery. It is located in Brimstone Sands, just south of the capital. What I do, come down to Cavalier's Shrine, head directly north, and that brings you right to the Hatchery. And what do you need to run the hatchery? Well, it recommends a gear score of 600 to 625. So I would recommend that you at least have 600 gear score on your armor. The higher and the closer you get it to 625, the more damage your weapons are going to do, the more damage mitigation your armor is going to have. So that's going to be helpful. But if all you got is some 600 gear score stuff and you want to jump in and get some runs, well, it is clearable with 5 people, 6 people and some good gear. So you definitely can get pulled through even if your gear is a little bit on the lower end of things. But there are a few things you're going to want to do to help make your time in the hatchery a little bit more enjoyable. So let's go over what you want on your gear. The hatchery, it is a human type of trial. So if you can find some gear with human ward on it, it's going to help you a lot. The other thing you really want to try doing is slotting some ruby gems in your armor. Otherwise, you're gonna be getting burned. Literally burned. So try to slot some cut pristine rubies inside of your armor. And the other thing you can do and should try doing, find yourself an amulet with flame protection. Obviously whatever attribute dependent on your class. And then health is kind of the go-to, but something like divine is going to work alright for you too. Divine's actually sometimes a little bit underrated how good it is, but flame protection, health, divine, something. So make sure you get that flame protection to make it a little bit easier on you. Anyways, and then, well, that's kind of the basics. So I'm running it as a healer. And if you're running it as a healer, you definitely can get away. I'm going 21 Constitution. I would actually love to go down to 5 Con, but I have this ring that is just so good that I can't pass it up. And, well, in order to buy this ring, well, it's not even available to buy. But if it were available to buy, it probably cost me hundreds of thousands of gold, I'm guessing. But that's why I'm at 21 Con instead of 5. But realistically, what should you be? Say if you're running as a healer, there's no reason you can't go 200 Con and 300 focus. Or I don't have food right now, and I also have some intelligence from my gear, but you can easily go 200 Con, 300 focus, or 200 Con, 250 plus focus, and that's going to give you plenty of survivability. Some people get the misconception that you must be 100 Con or less, and you need to have your focus cranked up to 400, but the reality of it is your diminishing returns on focus above and beyond 250, it's not crazy. You can definitely get away with having a little bit lower focus, say 260 plus. Tends to be enough as long as you have blessed on your life staff and sacred on your ring. This is just as a healer specifically, obviously, but we're not going to go crazy into depth on the heals build or any of those other specific builds, but generally speaking, if you're light DPS and you don't have the proper gear, go 300 strength, 200 con, if that's what you need to get by to survive. And then as you begin to get the proper gear, you can start dropping that con, and maybe eventually you'll get down to the 5 con community. But until then, don't worry if you have to stack on a little bit of extra con just to survive. So that's the basics of it. You're going to want to start looking for some human ward gear to run the hatchery. You're going to want to slot those ruby gems into the gem slots. And when you can, you definitely want to try and get yourself a flame protection amulet. So let's go ahead and walk you through the run. So there's many different combinations of builds that you definitely can make work for this run. Right now we happen to be running like I think 3 to 4 healers and the rest DPS. But typically you're going to be looking to have 1 tank, maybe 2 tanks. And you start off this fight, you see, I went in the middle, basically taking the job of the tank to gather all the mobs. Because they're going to aggro onto the healer, so I get them to group up, I jump back, hit them with my scream, and I group them up that way. So kind of partly taking on the responsibility of a tank. Typically the tank's going to go right in the middle, taunt everything together, or if you got a little bit weaker group and you need to have 2 tanks, 1 tank on the left, 1 tank on the right, and you can group the mobs separately like that, just to make the pulls a little bit easier. But the stronger your group, just group them all up into one nice group and mow them right on down. So the second phase gets a little bit harder. The mobs hit you a little bit harder. The first phase, the mobs are pretty squishy, but kind of the same concept. You can see I'm getting knocked around a little bit, so I dodge out, let my DPS take over, and get back in doing some healing. So I actually enjoy when there's a couple of extra healers, have fun playing with my Void Blade a little bit, so lets me have a little bit extra downtime on doing actual healing and having some fun with the Void Blade instead. So I would say, you know, a typical combination is going to be 2 tanks, 2 healers, and 6 DPS. But definitely can make many different combinations work. But if you get a little weaker group, you definitely probably want to have a tank or 2. So kind of the same thing, these mobs are getting even harder yet, less of them, but they are going to be a little bit stronger mobs. So same thing, kind of get their aggro to group them up in the middle. If you had a tank, you know, the tank would go ahead and taunt them, grab them all into the middle, and then let your DPS go to work. So super basic so far on this run. Pretty much just your typical tank taunts, DPS mows them down, healers keep people alive. So nothing too crazy yet so far, just kind of your basic stuff. One thing you want to keep in mind is the better you can stack, the easier it's going to make it for you. Sometimes, especially if you have some ranged DPS, they can get caught up with a mob starts chasing them and they just start running circles around the edge, when in reality what they should be doing is dragging that mob back to the group. So the more you can stack up, the better. So this is where we get our first big boss. One more stage where there's going to be one more bigger boss. Yet the main boss, but this first guy, you know, it's not too bad. If you have a tank, obviously he's going to grab his aggro, and he's going to spawn in these little fellas. And ideally what you want to do is you want to just everybody stack on the boss, and you mow down the ads along with the boss. If for some reason your group can't handle it, sure, you could have 1 tank grab the aggro of the mobs while your DPS mow them down. The other tank hold on to the boss. 1 healer heal 1 group, 1 healer heal up the other group. But as you get stronger and stronger groups, you're just going to want to grab everything together and just stack. Stack up, AoE everything down, ads, boss, all in one. So these little mobs, if you don't kill them fast enough, they're going to go and kind of get this little empowered thing. They're going to go into the pit and come back a lot bigger and stronger. So if you can mow them down before they get the chance to do that, it's definitely going to be a good thing. So every once in a while, you get those big red fire rings around you, and if it's strong enough of a group, typically you can not worry about them, just ignore them. But one thing they are going to do is they're going to explode and kind of cause some AoE damage to your team. So ideally, I guess, if you get that red circle on you, you drag it away from your teammates. let it explode away from the group, and then come back and join the party. So basically just kind of repeats over and over. Boss is going to spawn in some ads, he's going to drop those red circles, and you get him low. It's when you really want to focus on just finishing off the boss. Once the boss gets finished off, the ads disappear as well. So, you can see we got a nice little disconnect there, but this part, this is the last. The main boss spawns in, and, well, first thing he's going to do, he's going to place a ring of fire on everybody. And that ring of fire, how you get rid of it, you dodge until you run out of stamina. And if you don't do that, that ring of fire, it can hurt you quite a bit. So just get ready right when he spawns in. You can start pre-dodging, burn yourself out of stamina, get rid of that ring of fire really fast. And if you forget to do that, it can melt you pretty quick. So always remember that. You get that little burning ring of fire on you, dodge until you run out of stamina. Otherwise, you just might burn to the ground. So that's the first main thing to remember. He's going to drop these big firestorms all over the place. If you got tons of fire resistance, they don't hurt you a whole lot, but obviously if you don't have the amulet, you don't have the rubies, you're probably not going to live for very long inside of them. So he's got this little incinerate move that he does, kind of pushes you back. Probably going to hit you pretty darn hard if you don't have fire resistance, but if you do have it, it's really nothing to worry too much about. But you can see he went and dropped those fire rings on everybody again, so they had to dodge away. And then he does these little burnouts all over the place. So you typically kind of tend to end up chasing him around. And we got this little fire animation on us. One other thing that happens, he's gonna spawn orbs on top of your teammates. And if you don't break that orb, your teammate is most likely going to get knocked. Because at the end of it, he gets stunned and takes a huge amount of damage, and the boss finishes him off. So definitely, whenever your teammate gets trapped by an orb, you need to go free them immediately. That way you can avoid getting knocked. So pretty basic so far. You get the ring of fire on you, dodge until it's gone, otherwise you melt. Otherwise, basically stack in the AoE heals, and you should be good to go. Might have to play it a little bit safer, obviously, if you don't have flame resistance, but one thing you have to be very careful of. He does this little pull effect where he pulls everybody into him. And if he's on the edge when he does that pull effect, well, sometimes teams completely wipe. I've had to finish this boss many times from like a third to a quarter by myself, or else with one other teammate, because the whole team gets wiped, getting pulled right off of the map. So he does this little animation where he sends waves of flame across the map. And you can dodge them. You can see there's little breaks in the wall. You find that wall and you avoid damage by escaping through the hole in the wall of fire. But the way I think is best to do it is stack on the boss, have a sacred right on the boss, and if you have any kind of leeching in your build sitting inside of that sacred, it should top you right back off quite well. So that's what I always do. I go ahead and sit in the sacred right on the boss, and then just keep attacking the boss. That sacred, it's going to amplify all healing that you get. So if you're doing some attacks and you have some leeching built in, for example, leeching on your ring, well, you should be able to heal through that ring of fire and be right back up to some pretty good health. If you can't survive getting, you can see right there he did that pull effect and it almost took me right off the platform. So one thing you want to be careful about doing when he does that, there could be different tricks to it too, but what I've always done is I just let him pull me right into him. When you try to dodge around while he's doing that pull effect, well, a lot of times you'll get yourself in trouble and you'll fall right off of the platform. Because, well, he pulls you and you try to dodge around it, and, well, instead of getting sucked right into the boss, letting him be your cushion between you and falling off the edge, well, you dodge and you dodge right off the edge. So you can see that red circle that kind of warns you that incinerate is about to come up. So that's one way you can know that you are going to have to dodge away before you get hit by that incinerate. Also, you get that little red dot on you where he's gonna shoot a fireball at you, and, well, it's pretty long animation, so you have time to dodge and run away from it. Well, there you have it. Well, you can see we got that nice, beautiful golden drop. Doesn't happen every time, but you definitely can get some excellent PvE gear from this dungeon. So highly recommend you get yourself set up for this dungeon. Start burning through those runs. Get those 15 in a day if you possibly can. Make sure you get at least 7 a week. And you should be well on your way to being very nicely set up for all of the PvE dungeons for Season 2. Well, hope you have a good one, and we will catch you on the next one.